Hello, welcome to a special Oscars edition of Some Like It Pop. I am managing editor Samantha Vincenti.
And I'm senior writer Matt Donnelly, and I'm ready to talk about the year in movies, the year in film.
It's just Matt and I today because Bradley and Allie don't watch movies or really TV. They just like pop music. It's just the one interest. So here we are because we see movies. I've seen about how many of the Best Picture nominees for the 89th Annual Academy Awards have you seen, Matt?
I think I've seen all but 2 or 3. I've seen Moonlight, La La Land, sort of like the main contenders, I think. I have not seen Hell or High Water.
I did. I saw that.
Right. So I feel like we're a complimentary team here.
Great.
What were some of your favorites? What are you rooting for?
I am strongly rooting for Moonlight. I thought it was a very beautiful, visually beautiful movie, and performance-wise, I understand why the only male actor who was nominated was Mahershala Ali, because even though I don't know, I do and I don't, because he was...
No, Naomi too, for supporting...
Well, right, I'm saying male, because the 3 leads weren't nominated.
Right.
And I guess one argument would be that because it's 3 parts, it's almost impossible to evaluate their performance, but then Mahershala Ali is only in the first part. Right, yeah. Spoiler alert.
Sorry.
So it's not really a spoiler. It's just 3 parts of the man's life. But yeah, so that I was kind of like, because I think the one who plays the man in his adulthood, I believe his name is Trevante Rhodes, I think should have been nominated. We're jumping ahead to snubs.
Yeah, you're right. And they were also different. To pit them against each other would have been really difficult and strange. But yeah, I agree. I think the last one was sort of the manifestation of like everything that this person had gone through the whole movie. So, yeah. And like I said, when I falsely said that, no, Naomi was nominated, I was very happy to see that she too was nominated because I thought she was excellent in that movie. And I remember it was funny seeing an interview of her talking about how she prepared for the role. She said she would watch videos on YouTube of sort of like people in crack dens and like how they acted and how they related to each other. And I thought that was super interesting that YouTube was like a means of preparation for her.
Well, yeah, because she's like, I mean, not that they don't have crack in England, but
right.
She's like, I didn't even recognize, I haven't seen a ton of her work, and I know her best from the James Bond movies where she plays the new, I don't know, James Bond parlance. She's not Moneypenny.
No.
Q? Is she Q?
You know, I think she is Moneypenny.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's the new Moneypenny.
Right.
So yeah, so I literally didn't recognize her, and that never happens with me.
She was super good.
Yeah.
And then in the men's category, there's been some controversy, certainly, about Casey Affleck. You saw Manchester by the Sea, correct?
I didn't. And it's one of those movies, I'm sure I will see it. And I do love a good Boston accent or New England accent. But yeah, I did. I forgot that he was. So this is the issue. So Casey Affleck and Mel Gibson are both nominated for Oscars this year. And Mel Gibson, much more than Casey Affleck, which I think if you really weigh their grievances. Okay, see, let me just backpedal even further.
Backpedal?
So they're both nominated, and both of them have had criminal allegations against them by women that I'm not comfortable with. Mel Gibson to a far greater degree.
Sure.
But by me saying that, I'm already entering into this weird thing we do with artists who have behavior that we don't approve of. Usually male, but not always, where you love the work and then you're like, oh, son of a bitch. Right. Casey Affleck, it was a sexual harassment lawsuit by several women, right?
Yeah. I think it was 2 cases of it. And yeah, it's the whole like Polanski effect seemingly over and over again. It's like, can you appreciate someone's work? Or even like Woody Allen, when, you know, there's this blatant bit of, you know, misogyny staring you in the face. And
right.
It's tough.
It's like worst case misogyny or best case misogyny, worst case Woody Allen slept with his daughter.
Right.
I didn't mean to sleep with them.
Cheapen the severity of that. Yeah.
Right. And then, or, you know, look at Nate Parker. I mean, his movie was set to be another Oscar darling and was completely, for the most part, taken out. A Birth of a Nation was taken out of the award shows completely because after in Hollywood's rush to acquire the movie, they didn't look into his past, and didn't know that he had this rape trial in college that he was acquitted in, but then later come to find the victim, alleged victim, committed suicide and said that it ruined her life. So it was a very serious allegation. Right. And that he was under trial with his writing partner for the movie.
I think there's obviously a huge danger in like qualifying the offenses. Yeah. And I think even if Casey Affleck is to a lesser degree responsible, if he is responsible at all, then I think that it should be seen sort of equally.
Right, because then you're like in this murky business of being like, well, Nate Parker might have raped someone, and then it's like, oh man, like where does it?
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's like, and this goes also for musicians that you have this issue with too. So which there are so many.
And it does, it feels murky. Having seen Manchester by the Sea and seeing how good he was, it was just like, oh.
I mean, I met him at a party once. He was super nice. Yeah. So, so
but
end of story.
Exactly,
so, right.
Yeah.
So that's sticky biz. But no, I also didn't see the movie. I also didn't see the movie because I do have, it's so lame, but when I know a movie is going to be heartbreaking, I don't run to the theater.
Right.
But
Moonlight didn't give you that sort of feeling going into it? Or had you not heard that much about it?
I hadn't heard that much about it, and so I didn't really know. And I didn't find Moonlight to be a sad. I mean, it is a sad movie. It's a movie about loneliness.
Right. It didn't end so hopelessly.
And I mean, without giving anything away, there was a part in the third part that there's not even dialogue. It's just him walking into a place. And it had been like an emotional week with everything that's been going on from November onward. Yeah. But I just had a free-flowing cry going for a good 5 minutes.
Not even on a plane.
Just a silent weep.
I think that was the impression that many people had. I heard more than a few tears.
Yeah.
In the theater around me.
I also, the man on the other side of my boyfriend who was there with his girlfriend was shifting in his seat so uncomfortably during a lot of the parts. And at one point got up, walked out, maybe to pee, maybe to not, at least one time. Was just so like physically uncomfortable by it all that it was distracting. Which
it was sucked. I mean, the rawness of it, I'm so unused to that because I'm sort of partial to like really like quippy dialogue. I respond most to that in movies, like really structured prose, and to see something affect me so deeply that was sort of relying more on like raw emotion was I learned something about myself.
Yeah. I mean, it is a little bit of a challenge to some viewers that I also favor sort of a rapid fire thing. Typically, I remember I heard some criticism of a podcast being like, it was too slow. I don't need to see the guy walk from the car to the building or something. But obviously that was a very studied choice. A lot of the movie, he's in complete silence as to demonstrate his loneliness. And I had to like kind of relearn how to watch something like that,
and I was never bored, and I thought that I might be considering shots like that. It was pretty cool.
It was gorgeous. I do think, and it was astonishingly handled by Barry Jenkins. Just that level. I mean, it makes people uncomfortable to see, obviously, homosexuality on screen for many people, black male homosexuality on screen, and then preteens grappling with their sexuality with each other.
Totally.
And it was all handled so well.
And I like how they said it so starkly in the beginning, too. It wasn't even like, I'm gay, what does that mean? It was like Naomi's character saying, like, my son's different, and that's going to really mess with him when he gets older. And I thought it was so interesting how it was so seamlessly explored early on.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm rooting for. I have not seen Arrival. Fences.
That is one I haven't seen.
Arrival. I haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge because, sorry, Mel Gibson, no, I'm good.
No,
and I also don't flock to World War II movies typically.
No.
Certainly not battle movies. I do want to see Lion and La La Land. I don't love the singing. I don't love the whimsy.
Can I tell you, I agree with you very, very much. I usually see like what I hear to be the top contender, so I was like, all right, I'll go see it. And the music didn't really do anything to me. I didn't even think that was like the most successful part of it. I think if you took the music out, it still would have had pretty much the same sentiment. But I will say the one thing that I loved, which I said this morning, is I thought Emma Stone was amazing. I think it was a total game-changing performance for her. And I've always liked her, but I didn't know she was able to achieve the depth that she did in this movie, which is kind of funny considering it's a movie that's supposed to be so like colorful and, like you said, whimsy, but she was so emotive and lately, lately, I look at the way people cry in dramatic roles to sort of like form an opinion, and she was just crying really well. So I recommend it, seeing if nothing else for her.
What's your feeling on a Claire Danes cry?
Oh, I mean, that's a horse of a different color. It's very extreme.
A crying horse.
Sure. No, I mean, she's a master of it, of course. And I still remember Ellen Page crying in Juno in the van, and the way her
that was great cry.
Lip quiver. And
definitely.
Yeah, I think that's when someone is able to connect that way, because I can't even do that in real life. So when I see that, I'm always quite impressed. Yeah.
I did see also Hell or High Water, which I did enjoy a lot, and Jeff Bridges was really great in it, but I wasn't like, give that movie an Oscar.
Yeah, I think it was one of those ones that critics for some reason like jumped on, but most people I know have the same sentiment, is like, it's good, but
yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
I mean, Ben Foster's good and everything. It was a totally solid movie.
Right, but
I wasn't like, that was incredible. So we'll see. Yeah,
one that my favorite movie probably of the year, I think, was 20th Century Women. So I was happy to see that it got a screenplay nomination, but Annette Bening was left off the list.
People were pissed.
A little sad about that. I mean, it was a very competitive field, that one specifically this year, but I mean, the fact that Amy Adams wasn't nominated either is pretty clearly a testament to that. But
it was surprising, and she didn't win the Golden Globe. She was nominated for the Golden Globe, and that's usually a pretty good indicator.
Right.
She would have been in leading. Yeah, I mean, Elle is like the underdog to win.
Right.
Isabelle Huppert.
I think most people were like,
Isabelle Huppert.
Yeah, I think so.
Huppert. I don't know. I'm not French.
No.
Isabelle Huppert. Why am I singing in a Spanish accent? Isabelle Huppert.
Because that's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isabelle Huppert.
Isabelle Humperdinck for Elle. Ruth Negga, Loving. Also, I really want to see that movie.
Yeah.
Natalie Portman. So yeah, Jackie.
Right.
That's an example where you were saying.
Oh yeah. I read this thing a couple of weeks ago that sort of explored recent years in which a woman would be nominated and almost be like a sure thing to win for Best Actress, and then the movie would almost be completely ignored in other categories. And that was the case with Natalie Portman and Jackie. She was nominated. I think she is still the favorite to win, or was it at some point, but it was totally ignored and shut out most other places, which I find to be interesting. And then on the other side of the coin, Arrival, which received multiple nominations, I think it was 8, which was conceivably built around Amy Adams, did not earn somehow Amy Adams a nomination. So I thought
that
those
was really
both
strange.
Sort of interesting things that happened in the.
I did see Florence. Although Florence Foster isn't nominated for Best Picture, which I agree with that. It was a lovely, and I think that's probably the best way to describe it. It's not just a hollow adjective. It was lovely. It wasn't earth-shattering. It was very pleasant.
It was pleasant.
It was very uplifting. I did get a lesson from the vocal coach who taught Meryl Streep how to sing poorly like Florence Foster Jenkins. That's a true story. It's actually a super, super interesting true story.
Yeah.
But that's on popcrush.com. You can see me singing horribly.
And you should take a quick look at it. I do think it's a credit to Meryl Streep, though, that she's able to really succeed in these roles that aren't necessarily, revered otherwise. Same with like Iron Lady, which she won the role for, but I don't think anyone was like, wow, that's a perfect movie otherwise. So I think it's interesting that she's always breaking records, but I'm sure it's an extension of her record-breaking nomination.
Well, right, because that's the other thing with the Oscars. I mean, with any awards, but especially with the Oscars, is that it's such a mix of merit, who deserves it, but then also not just merit from a specific project, but merit that they've accrued over the years. Like the first time that Denzel Washington won an Academy Award, it was like, I feel like he won. I want to say it was for Training Day or something.
I think so, yeah.
Less, and everyone's like, well, he should have won for Glory. And he had amassed all these other movies where he was completely overlooked.
Yeah. As
the Academy tends to overlook Black actors, even Denzel Washington. And so it was kind of like a cumulative win, and you see that, and which is strange, but it totally happens. And then, of course, then there's the politics of who's going to win. And then there's just like the times. I mean, people don't sit around talking about what an amazing movie Shakespeare in Love is all the time, but that won Best Picture.
Right.
So
Gwyneth.
I do think that La La Land, in my prediction, is going to sweep. Because I think right now everybody is so terrified and angry. Even if you're on the winning side politically, you're still angry, evidently.
Yeah,
I think everybody just happy about. Wants to watch two white people sing against a beautiful backdrop.
Right.
Two beautiful white familiar faces that we all love. I love.
Right. Singing. For me, you cut out Gosling, and I still think the best part of the movie is still there.
I mean, it is. I mean, it does look stunning.
Yeah, it was very nice to watch, and I had that experience. I remember being so particularly devastated for whatever news bit had popped up that morning, the day that I saw La La Land. And it could have been one of many new headlines that just made me feel panicked. And then I went to see the movie and I felt better. So I'm unfortunately a victim of that.
I mean, yeah, it's a bomb, you know?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I love escapism. Escapism's the best.
Sure.
Is it the best movie? I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I'm just saying, I think it's going to sweep.
I don't think it was the best movie, no. And while it did feature two white actors who, sure, probably have chances at winning, do you feel like the fact that 7 non-white actors were nominated this year and none were nominated last year is a signal of like progress, or do you think it's sort of like a fluke, or is it just talent and we don't even have to explore those things?
I do think, I'll say progress insofar as that the Academy president, Cheryl Boone Isaacs, who I believe is a Black woman herself, has listened to a lot of the feedback about kind of how they can improve the voting body, because so many of the voters are, I think now as of 2016, the LA Times said it was like 76% male, 91% white, and because membership is lifelong, then they have like an average age of like 60.
Right.
So a lot of, people just weren't even interested in seeing movies with stories that didn't represent them. And so they took several steps. They admitted a more diverse body of voters into it. They discussed setting term limits, which I do think introduces a second ageism element that's debatable.
Dicey, yeah.
But I mean, she did take steps to improve the voting body. It's not going to radically happen overnight, but I think that did help. I think the conversation around it helped. But I mean, to say it's hard to say that, because it's like, also I'm not like at all saying that they got the nominations to set things right.
Right.
Because
I hope not. Yeah.
I've heard that everyone in Fences is incredible. Right. I'm seeing Hidden Figures tonight. I'm super psyched about it. And I have no doubt that Taraji, who also was snubbed, people are saying, was incredible in it. So
that's why I think something like Fences and Moonlight this year specifically are so successful, because looking back at recent years in which Black actors were nominated, people have pointed out that sometimes winning stories are always Black actors, like within the context of white movies. For example, like 12 Years a Slave, it was a movie that featured successful Black actors, but it was still sort of like in the context of slavery, in which, white people are comfortable exploring that past. Whereas something like Moonlight and Fences, this is a story exclusively about people of color and not in the context of being owned by white people.
That's something that's definitely worth watching, because it's true. Octavia Spencer, who's nominated this year, won for The Help, which is another case where it was about a white savior.
Right.
Helping.
Thank you. I was thinking the word savior. I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, but like of the two races uniting in the face of this kind of like cartoonish level to us now of racism that everyone feels good about themselves. Crash was another very divisive win.
Yeah.
Not a good movie. I'll say it right now. And so
it's almost like, in the past, white voters have been happy to sort of like concede. It almost felt like concession of wins to Black actors in movies in which they were heroes or saviors.
Yeah, they made them feel good. Totally.
And that's why, Moonlight is specifically, I think, a great.
I mean, I think there's an element of that to a degree for our love affair with World War II movies too.
Mm-hmm. Oh God.
But yeah, so that's a good point, and that will be very interesting to see. If Mahershala Ali doesn't win for Moonlight, I'll be really bummed, but I have a feeling that he will be nominated for other things in the future.
I agree, and I certainly hope work. So. Yeah.
I also used to love him on this show called The 4400, which I forget because I used to steal it, but I think it was on USA, and it was like I love a B-level sci-fi show.
I know you do.
It was really good. The 4400, you guys, get out.
She also loves The Magician.
No, I don't love it. I said I watch it. I watch it.
I don't see where one point begins and the other ends. Are there any sort of like underdogs that you're rooting for, or sort of movies that were off the grid? Like, I remember looking at the list this morning and remembering I had seen this movie called A Man Called Uwe with my mom at this random independent theater in her suburban Massachusetts town. And then it was nominated for like 4 things. And I was like, all right, A Man Called Uwe.
Oh, what is
very
that?
happy to see that.
Please explain.
It was this very, very simple story just about this ornery old man. I mean, it's not a revolutionary tale. This ornery, angry old guy whose wife had recently died had sort of been stuck in his own ways for a while, well in mourning. And then all of a sudden this new young family moves in, and they're not white, and their kids are rambunctious, and they cause all types of trouble, and they somehow work their way into this man's heart, which on paper is a story that infuriates me, but it was just done so well that I was happy to see it on a few of the categories today.
Yeah, and now it was not overlooked, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay, so was Other People eligible?
Yes, yeah. And I think that was pretty much overlooked.
Yeah.
We can both agree that was one of our favorite movies this year.
Other People starring Molly Shannon and
Jesse Plemons.
I'm like Landry Room.
I almost said it too.
Let me break it down for terms, Yeah, Jesse Plemons and Bradley Whitford, and I cried my eyes out. It was a mess.
From the first scene.
From the first scene, it rips you open, but it's funny. It's one of those things that's like the funny honesty that's even more brutalizing.
Yeah.
And Molly Shannon is
so good.
Incredible.
So good.
And it's just it's a destruction. It's so good. It should have been screenplay and Molly Shannon at least.
Chris Kelly is the writer's name, right? I think.
And it was based on his own story.
Yeah, it's based on his own life.
Story, yeah.
He's an SNL writer, and the interviews I've seen since have all been, so interesting. And I think many actors who've seen it have said that they hope that Molly and he are both recognized, and it's a shame that they weren't.
It really is, and I don't know. I guess it's not like a quote unquote important film,
right?
And it's not. It's kind of just like a small family drama, but
it was such small release. I wonder if that has anything.
So relatable.
Yeah.
I found to anyone who's ever dealt with a sick parent or someone with a terminal illness in your family, and it was just. I mean, I just can't. I'm sorry. It's so good. It's Other People. See Other good. People.
I think it's on Netflix even, right? Already.
I think it is.
Yeah. And I was hoping to see some of Sing Street on there because I also loved that movie, and
you did.
It got some Golden Globe nominations, but I don't think it got any Oscar nominations.
See, my problem is because then you made me think of what I picked for best movies last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I love horror movies, and horror movies are overlooked every year.
Right.
Stanley Kubrick directs it. Like, it's not nominated for anything. So, I mean, it's nominated for, so Green Room was one of my favorite movies last year. And then that's a horror movie starring the late Anton Yelchin and Leah Shawkat from Arrested Development.
Love her.
And Patrick Stewart playing a neo-Nazi leader who doesn't hide his accent incredibly, but it's still interesting to see him in that role. And it's about this punk rock band who essentially gets stuck at this like white power rally, and they're trapped in there. And that's all I'll say about it. It's really, really good. And when we left the theater, my boyfriend and I left the theater, the feeling of dread like stayed with us for blocks, which never happens to me with a movie. Usually when I leave a movie, I'm like, that was great.
Yeah.
And then I forget it like 10 minutes long. It was really, really good, but I didn't expect it to get any nominations because it's a horror movie, even though I thought it was incredibly well made.
That is interesting. And I, having not seen it, saw that movie and stories saying that same thing everywhere. So I'm surprised. Yeah.
And I frankly think the storyline has never been more timely in some ways, because at the time that I saw it last year, it was like a neo-Nazi party warehouse. How inconsequential.
God.
It seems more consequential now.
It certainly does.
And it's also Anton Yelchin in one of his last roles, and I'm still really, really bummed about his death because he was one of my favorite young actors.
Me too.
Definitely would have been seeing nominations in the next
Oh,
few
I
years.
have no doubt. I don't care for horror movies, but I feel inclined to see that.
I recommend it. It's pretty stressful.
Thank you. Good. That's just what we need.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather see La La Land for a second time, quite frankly. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Clearly,
everyone.
most of America agrees with you.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, and you can check out all of our picks for best movies of 2016 on popcrush.com.
You certainly can. Oh, what was the other one? Oh, I really liked Everybody Wants Some. I was hoping maybe it would get a screenwriting one, but it didn't.
That movie did, I think, get some accolades, and it was really well received. I very much enjoyed it. I watched it on a plane, but it didn't have any sort of impact on me, and maybe that was because I'm a woman, and it's about a bunch of like baseball bros.
Yeah, see, that was sort of why I went into it, because I appreciate baseball novelty movies, and then the part that I actually appreciated the most was the relationship between the protagonist and the leading actress in the movie. I thought their scenes toward the end of the movies were so well written and so well executed, and that to me was actually what I loved most about it.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that was kind of interesting that a movie conceivably about like basically a frat house sort of at its end boiled down to this just really intense, interesting relationship between these two people.
Well, that tracks, I guess, with it's Richard Linklater, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so that tracks with his work, which is all kind of like, well, I didn't see Boyhood, but I've seen almost all of his other movies.
Yeah.
And they all are really good at also being kind of about nothing, but finding those humanity moments in a way that...
I'm going to sound really ignorant. Did he do The Sunrise Sunset?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Okay, because I love those. Yeah.
And
I love Julie Delpy. But
yes.
Boyhood,
really
among those, Boyhood is probably my least favorite. So.
I didn't see it, although I do see Ethan Hawke constantly in my neighborhood. And I will say, he's holding up.
Shout out.
He looks great.
Hey, Ethan.
If you're listening to this, saw you at the coffee shop last Saturday.
How are you?
Yeah. No, that I did not see. I did not see Nocturnal Animals, although speaking of other people I see walking around my neighborhood all the time looking real weird, Michael Shannon is nominated for Nocturnal Animals, and Amy Adams was also overlooked for that, which I didn't really... God. That movie is very mixed reviews. It's not like I'm standing for her to get a nom for that, but salt in the wound, man.
She is... I feel like she's being set up to get the Leo, award.
The cumulative win.
Yeah, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she's been nominated
has she won?
times.
She's nominated. Okay, always
5 or 6 times
yeah.
she's been nominated. But no, she should have certainly been.
Gonna be her year some year.
Oh, sorry, Amy. So before you started working here and had to cover it the night of, did you like watch it? Do you have like a ritual on Oscars night, or did you sort of like ignore it?
Good question. Because working in the job that we have forces you mandatorily, because you're covering it, to watch every single award show to the point where you begin to despise award shows and everything they stand for. But mostly just the having to watch them. Right. That's mostly what you despise.
The mandate.
Yeah. But I wasn't like an every year, and I was always interested in who won. If I was invited to a good Oscar party, I would go. Mm-hmm. Also, sometimes the host is more of an incentive for me. And this year it's Jimmy Kimmel, and I'm not like super excited about it. I mean, no disrespect to Jimmy Kimmel. He's talented at what he does. I don't know. But I understand why they'd want to pick Kimmel in that, A, he's built-in talent, the network, and then B, he is a lot safer, I'll say, I guess, than Chris Rock, or specifically Chris Rock's broadcast saw the lowest ratings in years. It was like...
Which is so sad.
Yeah. So, well, and also it could have been a variety of factors. People really sick with Oscars. So white debate and a bunch of things, but...
I will say I'm glad to have him over Jimmy Fallon again, so I'll say that much.
That's very, very fair, very fair.
And I feel like of the late night shows with the most to lose on major networks, he's been okay with sort of addressing Trump and not just conceding to him. So.
True, that is true. Yeah. I shouldn't count Jimmy Kimmel out.
No, I hope he has one or two, curveballs.
Yeah, that's very
ready
fair.
to go.
Yeah. And did you if I had to guess, you watched it every year?
Not every year, no. I liked it. I only ever cared about the actors and the writing awards, and everything else sort of like blanked out to me. When you mentioned an Oscars party, I know that's almost like a ubiquitous thing to people go to thematic Oscars parties and like have Oscar dips and like Oscar cakes. I don't think I've ever been to one.
Actually, as you were starting to say that, I was like, wait, do people in their like mid-20s not have Oscar? Because people don't watch award shows anymore. Like
right,
they did.
exactly.
They just catch the highlights on Twitter, which honestly, if I didn't work in entertainment, I would consume it that way as well, because who the hell has 3 hours when there's so many shows on Amazon? I don't have 3 hours.
Yeah. And if you have favorites, you can isolate them winning. I think before I started here, I did exactly that. If someone I wanted to hear won, then I would watch it. And if not, then I wouldn't.
And more often than not, again, because I heavily favor horror movies and sci-fi movies, it's the movies winning Best Picture weren't typically movies that I had even seen.
Yeah.
Much less wanted to see. Or then when I did see them, I was like, that was a cool movie. Like Birdman, for example.
Right.
I don't think I covered the Oscars that year. I can't remember. But I hadn't seen it. And then I saw it and I was like,
pretty good.
This is a dude version of Black Swan. Cool. Good movie.
Oh, it totally was. I never thought of that.
Exactly. It was like, this is hauntingly familiar.
Oh, yeah.
And great. I love Michael Keaton. I've loved him since Beetlejuice. Super. Did I think it was the best movie I had seen that year? Absolutely not.
No. I agree. It was a little bizarre.
So.
Sorry, Birdman.
Sorry, Inarito.
Harsh truths.
But yeah, so long story short, award shows mean nothing, but we're still gonna watch it.
Right, and
be
should
pissed.
You all.
Be pissed if our favorites lose.
Yes,
for sure.
Which is very likely because
very likely, extremely likely, unless you love La La Land above no other.
We're fighting losing battles here, and we might as well admit to that.
But we'll watch it, and you should watch it with us as we're covering it on popcrush.com.
Certainly should. We'll have plenty of tweets for you as well.
Live Jody tweeting at popcrush.
At popcrush.
We'll be Facebooking. We won't be snapping. I won't be snapping my reaction faces. Who wins?
Though I'm sure people at the shows will be snapping, because that's also become its own little spectator sport. Is like, what are the celebrities themselves doing?
That's all I care about.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
At any award show, I always just want the second camera on the audience.
Right. So if you see any, tell us, because we'll post about it.
Share the moments.
Share your faves.
All right. Well, it's a wrap. That's a movie term.
Yeah.
That's a little movie terminology.
Clap.
That's a clap, like they say.
Right, exactly.
As they say in Hollywood. I've got the clap.
Oh dear.
I don't have the clap, you guys. Follow us on Pop Crush on Twitter, Facebook, Pop Crush, Instagram, Pop Crush Music, and subscribe to this podcast if you like us.
See you then.
See you then.
Love you.
On the internets. Bye.